Smile, Austin. This is the last time you'll ever look happy.
The hangover wasn't from the alcohol. Honestly, I'd only had 2 beers at the company party last night. No, this sick feeling in my gut came from something much worse than cheap beer and stale pretzels. My name is Joel Granger, and I've always been the guy people underestimate. At 38, I work logistics for a mid-sized tech firm in our cozy New England town of Millbrook, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and everyone's got something to hide. I'm not the flashy type. I wear khakis and button-downs, drive a reliable Honda, and keep my head down. My wife Lacey always said I lacked ambition. Turns out she was looking for ambition in all the wrong places. I was nursing my coffee in our kitchen when Miles Henderson, my coworker and the closest thing I had to a best friend, burst through my back door without knocking. That should have been my first warning. "Joel, man, you need to see this." Miles was breathing hard, his phone clutched in his sweaty palm. "I mean, you really need to see this right now." "See what?" I asked, though something in his voice made my stomach clench. Miles set his phone on the kitchen table. The screen showed a video with over 50,000 views already. The thumbnail sent a chill down my spine. My wife Lacey in the pool at last night's party, her arms wrapped around Austin Veers, our company's CEO. "Play it," I said quietly. What I watched next destroyed my marriage in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Lacey, my wife of 6 years, was in Austin's outdoor pool at his lake house. She wasn't just swimming, she was performing. Her hands were all over him, her mouth on his neck, and the crowd of our coworkers was cheering them on like it was some kind of twisted entertainment. The worst part? She was loving every second of it. The camera caught her face clearly as she looked directly at the lens and winked. She actually winked. "I always knew Lacey liked to swim," I muttered, my voice hollow. "But this is Olympic-level betrayal." Miles shifted uncomfortably. "Joel, I'm sorry, man. I thought you should know before..." "Before what? Before everyone in town sees my wife dry-humping our boss in front of half the company?" I stood up so fast my chair toppled backward. "Too late for that, isn't it?" The video had been posted by Sean Martinez, one of Austin's office sycophants. The comments were brutal. People I'd worked with for years were making jokes about my marriage, calling me a loser, placing bets on how long it had been going on. "Where is she now?" I asked. "Lacey? She went to work early, said she had a meeting with HR. "Of course she did. Damage control. But for who? Me or Austin?" I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Miles called after me, but I was already backing out of the driveway. My Honda had never felt so small as I drove through our picture-perfect town, knowing that behind every window people were probably watching that video and laughing at stupid Joel Granger. The office parking lot was nearly full when I arrived. Lacey's silver Lexus, a car we couldn't really afford but she insisted on having, was parked in her usual spot near the front entrance. I pulled up right behind her, blocking her in. She came out of the building 20 minutes later, her heels clicking on the asphalt. Lacey was beautiful in that polished, corporate way. Blonde hair, always perfect, makeup flawless, clothes expensive. At 32, she looked like she belonged in a boardroom or a magazine. Definitely not with a logistics guy like me. "Joel?" She stopped when she saw me leaning against her car. "What are you doing here?" "Interesting question, Lacey. I could ask you the same thing about last night." Her face didn't change. That was the thing about Lacey. She was always calculating, always 3 moves ahead. "I don't know what you mean." I held up my phone, showing her the video. 58,000 views and counting. You're famous. For just a second, her mask slipped. I saw panic flicker across her features before the ice returned. "Joel, you're being ridiculous. It was just a party. People were drinking, having fun." "Having fun?" My voice came out louder than I intended. A few people in the parking lot turned to look. "You call that having fun? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were auditioning to be Austin's next conquest." "You're being paranoid and jealous, just like always." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This is exactly why we have problems, Joel. You see threats everywhere because you're insecure." The gaslighting was smooth, practiced. How many times had she used this exact strategy? How long had I been the fool who believed her? "I'm filing for divorce," I said quietly. That got through her defenses. Her eyes widened slightly. "Joel, don't be hasty. We can talk about this." "No, Lacey, we're done talking. I'm done being the understanding husband while you parade around town making me look like an idiot." I walked away from her then. leaving her standing in the parking lot. But as I drove to my lawyer's office, I realized something important. Filing for divorce was just the opening move. The real game was just beginning. The law office of Patricia Morse was located in a converted Victorian house on Elm Street, complete with creaky floors and the smell of old books. Patricia had handled my parents' wills and my house purchase. She was thorough, honest, and exactly what I needed. Joel, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Patricia leaned back in her leather chair, my hastily signed divorce papers spread across her antique desk. 6 years of marriage, and you want to file based on a video at a party? It's not just the video, Patricia. It's everything. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the credit card bills for restaurants I've never been to. I rubbed my temples. I've been blind, but I'm not stupid. All right, I'll file the papers this afternoon. But Joel, if you want to protect your assets, you need to start documenting everything. Financial records, communication, behavior patterns. The more evidence you have, the better position you'll be in. Evidence. That word stuck with me as I drove home. My house felt different now, not like a home, but like a crime scene waiting to be processed. I started in Lacey's home office, a converted bedroom where she handled her HR work and personal business. The desk was locked, but I knew where she kept the spare key, taped under the bottom drawer, just like her father had taught her. Inside, I found bank statements that made my blood boil. Our joint savings account, which should have had $12,000, was down to $300. The missing money had been transferred to an account I'd never seen before. But that wasn't the worst discovery. In a folder marked Personal, I found printed emails between Lacey and someone called AV. The messages went back 4 months. They started professional, discussions about office policies and employee evaluations, but they quickly became personal, then intimate, then explicit. Austin Veers. My wife had been having an affair with our CEO for 4 months, and I'd been too trusting to see it. The emails revealed more than just infidelity. Austin had been feeding Lacey inside information about company layoffs, helping her position herself for promotions, even discussing ways to get rid of employees who might cause problems, including me. Joel's getting suspicious, one email read. Maybe it's time for a restructuring in logistics. They'd been planning to fire me. My own wife was helping my boss destroy my career so they could continue their affair without complications. I photographed everything with my phone, then carefully returned the papers to their original positions. Lacey couldn't know I'd found her secrets. Not yet. That evening, I drove to Penny's place, the local bar where the town's real business got conducted. Penny Morrison had owned the establishment for 15 years and knew everyone's secrets. If anyone could give me insight into Austin Veers, it would be her. The bar was dimly lit and comfortable, with worn leather booths and the smell of good beer and better gossip. Penny was behind the bar, polishing glasses with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. "Joel Granger," she said as I took a stool. "Heard you had some excitement today." News travels fast. "Honey, in a town this size, news travels at the speed of light. Beer?" "Please." She set a cold bottle in front of me. "Penny, what do you know about Austin Veers?" Her expression darkened. "That man's been trouble since he moved here 2 years ago. Rich boy from Boston, thinks he owns everything he touches, including other men's wives, especially other men's wives." She leaned closer. "Joel, you're not the first husband to sit at this bar asking about Austin. Tommy Peterson came in here 6 months ago with the same look you've got now. His wife Jennifer worked at the company too. What happened to Tommy? Divorced, broke, and living in a studio apartment across town. Austin's got a system, Joel. He targets married women in vulnerable positions, wines and dines them, makes them feel special. Then when the husband gets wise, he makes sure they lose everything in the split." The beer turned sour in my mouth. "How?" "Money, influence, connections. Austin's got friends in family court, friends at the bank, friends everywhere that matters. He's untouchable." "Nobody's untouchable, Penny." She studied my face for a long moment. "You're not going to do anything stupid, are you?" "Define stupid." "Anything that ends with you in handcuffs?" I finished my beer and left money on the bar. "Don't worry about me, Penny. I'm smarter than I look." That's what I'm afraid of. Driving home, I formulated a plan. Austin Veers thought he was untouchable because he'd never faced someone like me. He was used to dealing with emotional, reactive husbands who made mistakes, but I wasn't emotional anymore. I was calculating. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Austin's lake house. It was a sprawling modern monstrosity on the north shore of Miller Lake, all glass and steel and pretension. The kind of place that screamed, "I have more money than taste." I parked down the road and walked through the woods until I had a clear view of the house. Austin's black BMW was in the driveway, along with a silver Lexus I recognized all too well. They were inside together while I sat at work, believing my wife was at the office handling HR business. The betrayal cut deep, but anger was more useful than pain. I had my phone ready when they came out onto the deck. Austin was shirtless, Lacey wearing one of his dress shirts and nothing else. They were laughing, kissing, completely oblivious to the world around them. I recorded 2 minutes of footage before Austin's security system spotted me. A loud alarm began blaring, and I saw him reach for his phone. Time to go. I made it back to my car just as a security company vehicle turned into Austin's driveway. My hands were shaking as I drove away. But I had what I needed. Video evidence of their affair, time-stamped and undeniable. But as I reviewed the footage later, I realized something important. Evidence wasn't enough. Austin had survived other scandals, other angry husbands. If I wanted real justice, I needed to think bigger. I needed to destroy him the same way he destroyed other men. Publicly, completely, and without mercy. The war was about to begin. The Millbrook Summer Festival was our town's biggest event, drawing thousands of people to the central square for 3 days of food, music, and gossip. This year, it would be remembered for something else entirely. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment. The festival's main stage had a large LED screen for announcements and sponsor messages. As a volunteer coordinator, a position I'd held for 3 years, I had access to the control booth. But first, I needed to set the stage properly. The festival's opening night featured a community appreciation dinner where local business leaders were honored. Austin would be there, of course, along with Lacey and most of our co-workers, the perfect audience for what I had planned. I arrived early and made my way to the control booth, where my friend Danny Walsh was setting up the audiovisual equipment. "Hey, Joel," Danny said, not looking up from his laptop. "You're early." "Wanted to make sure everything's ready for tonight." Big crowd expected. "Should be good. We've got the sponsor videos queued up, plus some community highlights from last year's festival. Mind if I add something? I put together a little montage about our local business community. Nothing fancy, just some candid moments from recent events." Danny shrugged. "Sure, as long as it's appropriate for families." "Oh, it's definitely educational." I loaded my video file onto Danny's system, scheduling it to play during the dinner's intermission. Then I took my seat at a table near the back of the tent where I could watch the show. Austin arrived fashionably late, as always. He wore an expensive suit and his trademark arrogant smile, working the crowd like a politician. Lacey was at his side, not as his date, officially, but close enough that anyone paying attention would notice. She looked stunning in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. They made a beautiful couple, I had to admit. Too bad it wouldn't last much longer. The dinner proceeded normally for the first hour. Speeches about community spirit, awards for local volunteers, the usual small-town pageantry. Austin gave a presentation about his company's economic impact on Millbrook, soaking up applause like a sponge absorbs water. Then came intermission. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please enjoy this special presentation celebrating our vibrant local business community." The lights dimmed and my video began playing on the massive screen. It started innocently enough. Shots of local businesses, smiling employees, the kind of feel-good content people expected. But then the music changed, and the real show began. The pool video from Austin's party filled the screen in high definition. Every detail was crystal clear. Lacey's hands on Austin's chest, their mouths pressed together, the crowd of coworkers cheering them on. The audio was perfect, too. You could hear Lacey moaning Austin's name. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. Someone screamed. Several people gasped. I heard chairs scraping as people stood up for a better view. But the video wasn't over. Next came the footage I'd shot at Austin's lake house. Lacey in his shirt, their intimate embraces on the deck, Austin's hands all over my wife's body. Timestamps showed it was taken during work hours, when Lacey was supposed to be in meetings. The tent erupted in chaos. Austin was on his feet, shouting at Danny to cut the video, but Danny was frozen in shock. Lacey had gone pale as death, her perfect makeup unable to hide her horror. But the best part was still coming. The final segment showed screenshots of their email exchanges, blown up large enough for everyone to read. The messages were clearly inappropriate, but more damaging were the business discussions. Austin sharing confidential information, discussing ways to manipulate employee evaluations, planning to fire people who might discover their affair. "Turn it off!" Austin roared, pushing through the crowd toward the control booth. But it was too late. People were already recording the screen with their phones, uploading clips to social media in real time. The video ended with a simple text message. "This has been a public service announcement about integrity in local business. Thank you for your attention." The tent was in complete chaos now. Austin's wife, a brittle woman named Margaret, who'd been sitting with the other corporate spouses, was screaming at him in front of everyone. Lacey's parents, visiting from Connecticut for the festival, were staring at their daughter in horror. I stood up slowly and walked toward the exit, passing directly by Austin's table. He saw me coming and stepped into my path. "You son of a witch!" he snarled, his polished facade completely gone. "You think you're clever?" "I think I'm thorough," I replied calmly. "How's that untouchable reputation working out for you now?" Austin raised his hand like he was going to hit me, but we were surrounded by hundreds of people with cameras. Instead, he leaned close and whispered, "This isn't over, Granger. I'll destroy you." "You already tried that, Austin. My turn now." I walked away, leaving him standing in the wreckage of his reputation. Behind me, I could hear Lacey crying, her mother's angry voice, and the excited chatter of a town that had just witnessed the scandal of the decade. The party was definitely over, and I was just getting started. The fallout from the festival was swift and brutal. By morning, the video had been shared thousands of times across social media. Local news stations picked up the story, and by afternoon, reporters were camped outside Austin's office building. I called in sick again and spent the day monitoring the chaos from my living room. Austin's company stock dropped 12% in one day. The board of directors called an emergency meeting. 3 major clients canceled contracts, citing concerns about corporate culture. But Austin wasn't going down without a fight. My phone rang at 10 a.m. It was Patricia Morse, my lawyer. "Joel, we have a problem. Austin Veers is claiming you hacked into his private computer systems to obtain those emails. He's filed a police report and is threatening to press charges." "That's ridiculous. I found the emails in my own house, in my wife's desk." "Can you prove that?" I thought about it. The emails were printed copies. No digital trail back to his system. "Good. But Joel, he's also claiming you're stalking him and his employees. Says you've been following them, taking unauthorized photographs, trespassing on private property. That was more problematic. I had been on his property when I filmed them at the lake house." "What do you recommend?" "Lay low. Don't contact Austin or Lacey directly. Don't go near his property. And for God's sake, don't post anything else online." I agreed, but privately I had no intention of stopping. Austin was wounded but not finished. If I gave him time to recover, he'd find a way to turn this around. Rich men always did. That afternoon, I got a call from Miles. "Joel, man, you need to get down here. Something's happening at the office." I drove to our building and found Miles waiting in the parking lot. His face was grim. "They fired me," he said without preamble. "What? Why?" "Austin called me into his office an hour ago, said I was being terminated for unauthorized disclosure of confidential company information. Apparently, showing you that video was grounds for immediate dismissal." My stomach dropped. "Miles, I'm sorry, I never meant—" "It's not your fault, man. But it gets worse. Austin's telling everyone that you're unstable, that you've been planning this revenge scheme for months. He's painting you as the villain. And people believe him? Some do. Austin's got influence, Joel. He's already got 3 people claiming they saw you acting suspicious around the office, following female employees, making inappropriate comments." I felt the walls closing in. Austin was using his power and connections to rewrite the narrative, making me the aggressor instead of the victim. "There's something else," Miles continued. "Lacey's been telling people you've been controlling and aggressive at home. Says she was afraid to leave you because you threatened her." The lie hit me like a physical blow. "That's insane. I never laid a hand on her." "I know that, but Austin's got her coached up. They're building a case that you're dangerous, that everything you did was part of some unhinged revenge fantasy." I realized then how naive I'd been. I thought exposing Austin would be enough, but he was a master manipulator. He'd survived scandals before by shifting blame, controlling narratives, using his wealth and influence to destroy his enemies. But I had advantages he didn't expect. I knew this town, these people, and I was far from finished. That evening, I drove to Penny's place. The bar was packed. Apparently, Scandal was good for business. Conversations stopped when I walked in, but Penny waved me over to the bar. Well, well, she said, pouring me a beer without being asked. If it isn't Millbrook's most famous troublemaker? I take it you saw the news. Honey, everyone saw the news. Question is, what are you going to do about Austin's counterattack? You heard about that? Joel, I've been running this bar for 15 years. I hear everything. She leaned closer. Austin's been in here twice today, buying drinks for anyone who listened to his sob story. Says you're a dangerous stalker who violated his privacy. And people believe him? Some do. Money talks, especially to people who need their jobs. She paused. But not everyone's buying it. Austin's made enemies over the years. People who'd love to see him get what's coming to him. Like who? Penny glanced around, then motioned for me to follow her to a quiet booth in the back corner. Tommy Peterson, for starters. Remember I told you about him? Austin destroyed his marriage and his career. Tommy's been waiting 2 years for payback. What about Jennifer Peterson, Tommy's ex-wife? That's the interesting part. Jennifer came to see me last week before your little festival show. She's been having second thoughts about Austin. Seems the thrill of being the CEO's mistress wore off when she realized she was just another conquest. This was promising. Is she willing to talk? Maybe. But Joel, you need to be careful. Austin's got resources you don't. He can hire private investigators, pay for legal representation, buy influence. You're fighting out of your weight class. David beat Goliath. David had God on his side. What have you got? I smiled grimly. I've got something Austin doesn't understand. I've got nothing left to lose. The next morning brought another surprise. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when someone knocked on my front door. Through the window, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, brown hair, nervous expression. I opened the door cautiously. Can I help you? Are you Joel Granger, the man who exposed Austin Veers? Depends who's asking. My name is Sarah Chen. I worked for Austin's company. I was fired yesterday. I invited her in, and she told me a story that made my blood boil. Sarah had been Austin's personal assistant for 18 months. During that time, she'd witnessed his pattern of targeting married female employees, manipulating them into affairs, then discarding them when he grew bored. He keeps files, she said, her voice shaking with anger. Digital files on every woman he's been with. Photos, videos, personal information. He uses them as insurance to make sure no one talks. Insurance against what? Harassment lawsuits mostly. If someone threatens to expose him, he threatens to release their private information, destroy their reputations, their marriages. Why are you telling me this? Sarah's expression hardened. Because I'm one of those files. And yesterday, when Austin fired me for disloyalty, he made it very clear what would happen if I ever talked about what I knew. But you're talking to me. Because you already did what I never had the courage to do. You fought back. She reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. This contains copies of Austin's insurance files. Everything he's collected on dozens of women over the past 5 years. I stared at the drive. Sarah, this could destroy him completely. That's the idea, but Joel, you need to be smart about how you use it. Austin's dangerous when he's cornered. He'll do anything to protect himself. After Sarah left, I sat in my kitchen staring at the flash drive. This was it. The tool that could end Austin Veers once and for all. But Sarah was right about being careful. One wrong move, and Austin would find a way to turn this against me too. I needed a plan that was foolproof, devastating, and completely legal. It was time to finish what I'd started. The contents of Sarah's flash drive were even more damaging than I'd hoped. Austin had been collecting blackmail material on women for years. Not just employees, but clients, competitors' wives, even local politicians' spouses. The files were meticulously organized with photos, videos, personal details, and what he called leverage points on each woman. But the most shocking discovery was a folder labeled Future Projects. It contained detailed plans for targeting specific women, including their schedules, vulnerabilities, and Austin's strategies for seducing them. My wife, Lacey, was file number 47. According to Austin's notes, he'd been planning to pursue Lacey for 6 months before making his first move. He'd researched our marriage, our finances, even my work schedule. The affair wasn't spontaneous passion. It was a calculated campaign of manipulation. I spent 3 days studying the files, looking for the perfect way to use them. Austin had made one crucial mistake. He'd stored everything on a personal cloud account that he accessed from his work computer. According to Sarah, he'd been sloppy about security, often leaving himself logged in when he left his office. But I needed more than just evidence. I needed a delivery method that would cause maximum damage while keeping me legally protected. The answer came from an unexpected source, Detective Lisa Roy. Lisa and I had been friends since high school. She'd become a cop, I'd gone into logistics, but we'd stayed in touch over the years. She was smart, honest, and completely incorruptible. Everything Austin wasn't. I called her on Thursday evening. "Joel Granger," she said when she answered. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you. Half the town's talking about your festival performance." "I need to ask you something, Lisa. Hypothetically." "Oh boy. Hypothetical questions from you are never good news." "If someone had evidence of multiple crimes, blackmail, extortion, harassment, what would be the proper way to report it?" "Joel, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I can't tell you specifics yet, but hypothetically," Lisa sighed. "Hypothetically, if someone had credible evidence of serious crimes, they should report it to the appropriate authorities immediately. The FBI handles interstate crimes, the state police handle major felonies, local police handle everything else. And if the evidence was obtained legally but through unconventional means? As long as it wasn't obtained through illegal surveillance or hacking, it would probably be admissible. But Joel, if you're sitting on evidence of crimes, you have a legal obligation to report it." "I understand. Thanks, Lisa." "Joel, be careful. Whatever you're planning, make sure you can live with the consequences." I hung up and made my decision. Austin had used his power to destroy innocent people for years. It was time someone used that power against him. But first I had one more stop to make. Jennifer Peterson lived in a small apartment complex on the east side of town. According to Penny, she'd been having second thoughts about Austin, and I needed to know if she'd be willing to testify against him. She answered her door wearing sweatpants and a haunted expression. The confident woman who'd once been Austin's prize conquest looked broken. "You're Joel Granger," she said. It wasn't a question. "I am. Can we talk?" She let me in, and I quickly explained what I'd discovered. Jennifer listened without interruption, her face growing paler with each revelation. "He has files on all of us?" she asked when I finished. "Dozens of women, photos, videos, personal information. He's been blackmailing people for years." Jennifer started crying then. Not pretty tears, but ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. "He told me I was special, that he'd never felt this way about anyone before. Jennifer, I need to know, are you willing to testify against him? If this goes to trial, your testimony could be crucial." She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something like determination. "What do you need me to do?" "Just tell the truth. About how he manipulated you, what he promised, how he used his position to coerce you into the affair." "And my ex-husband? Tommy? What about him?" "Austin destroyed our marriage, got Tommy fired, made sure he couldn't find work anywhere in town. If I testify, will it help Tommy get justice too?" "I think it will help everyone get justice." Jennifer nodded slowly. "Then yes, I'll testify. It's time someone stopped Austin Veers." That night, I made copies of everything on Sarah's flash drive. I burned multiple DVDs, printed key documents, and prepared detailed summaries of Austin's crimes. Then, I started making phone calls. The FBI field office in Boston was my first call. I spoke to Agent Rebecca Martinez, who specialized in white-collar crimes and public corruption. "Mr. Granger, these are serious allegations. You're claiming this man has been running a systematic blackmail operation?" "That's correct. I have documented evidence of at least 30 victims over 5 years. Some of the women were minors when he first targeted them. That got her attention." "Can you bring this evidence to our office tomorrow?" "I'll be there at 9 a.m. My second call was to the State Attorney General's office. They were interested in the public corruption angle. Austin had been using his blackmail files to influence local politicians and business leaders. My third call was to Channel 7 News in Springfield. Investigative reporter Maria Santos had won awards for exposing corporate corruption. She agreed to meet with me after I'd spoken to law enforcement. By midnight, I had meetings scheduled with federal agents, state prosecutors, and investigative journalists. Austin's empire was about to collapse, but I had one final move to make. The next morning, before driving to Boston, I logged into every social media account I had and posted a simple message. "The truth about Austin Veers will be revealed today. Justice is coming for everyone he's hurt. Stay tuned." Then I drove to Boston and handed over enough evidence to destroy Austin Veers completely. The FBI moved fast. By that afternoon, they had search warrants for Austin's home, office, and personal devices. State police raided his lake house while federal agents seized his company's servers. Austin was arrested at 4:17 p.m. on charges of extortion, blackmail, computer fraud, and conspiracy. The perp walk was broadcast live on 3 local news stations. But the best moment came that evening when I was back home watching the news coverage. My phone rang, and Lacey's name appeared on the caller ID. "Joel," she said, her voice small and scared. "We need to talk." "No, Lacey, we really don't." "Please." "I know I made mistakes, but Austin manipulated me. He said he loved me, that he'd take care of me. I didn't know about the other women. You knew enough. You knew he was married. You knew I was your husband. You made your choice. Joel, please, I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make this right." I looked around my house, our house, and realized I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger, no hurt, no love. Just emptiness where my marriage used to be. "Goodbye, Lacey." I hung up and blocked her number. 3 hours later, Austin's wife, Margaret, filed for divorce. By morning, 5 more women had come forward with harassment allegations. Austin's company stock was delisted, and the board of directors voted to dissolve the corporation. Austin Veers, the untouchable CEO who destroyed so many lives, was facing 47 felony charges and financial ruin. The party was over. This time, I was the one who'd turned out the lights.